Welcome to the final episode in our 6-part series of writing exercises for applicants and students, delivered by the Creative Writing course team, which is part of the University of Worcester's Department of English, Media and Culture. My name is Jack McGowan, and I'm the course leader for Creative Writing. Each of these sessions has been designed to give applicants a taster of the sort of writing exercises you may experience during a typical class. Current students may also view these sessions and use them as writing prompts for independent study. This session introduces editing and redrafting and outlines some techniques to help you get the best out of your writing. Editing your work can sometimes feel like an off-putting prospect. Often we feel like our first draft is closest to the thoughts and feelings that first inspired it, and that by changing or altering the first draft, you might lose some of that initial magic. Don't be afraid of editing. Making even small edits could change the piece, but all writing is a journey, and it's better to tinker with a piece to try and improve it than to do nothing in fear of making it worse. After all, you can always keep a copy of the first draft in a separate document or notebook. That way you can return to the first draft whenever you want. The fantasy author, Terry Pratchett, once said, "The first draft is just you telling yourself the story." You need to get it out of your head and onto the page. But the work doesn't stop there. It's the first step towards making your story or your poem work for the reader as successfully as it worked in your head. Editing isn't necessarily going to replace the excitement you felt when you came up with a great story, and it can feel tedious to go through your work, or like you're going back on yourself. But editing can be fun as well. Think of it like a puzzle that you need to solve to make the work the best it can be. The satisfaction will come from knowing that you've made a real improvement. It helps to break your editing and redrafting down into two different types: surface edits and structural edits. Surface edits are changes to individual sentences or lines and can include grammar, punctuation, syntax or word order, and minor character details or description. These are changes you make that don't have an impact further on in the piece. They're about tidying up your writing and making sure it's communicating at full capacity. Structural edits are larger. These are typically more significant changes to characterization or plot or tone that might result in further changes to make sure that your work is consistent. In prose, these might be changes to the sequence of events or the introduction of new characters and subplots. In poetry, these might be changes to the direction or focus of the poem, or times when you discover you haven't quite said everything that you needed to say to convey your meaning. Make space for both. They are equally important to the overall success of your writing. To put this in context, here are 5 practical tips that you can use to kickstart your editing and redrafting. 1. Turn it on its head. If you're struggling to work out what you're trying to say in a poem or a story, or a particular scene within a longer narrative, try to see if you can say the exact opposite. Sometimes turning a piece on its head and thinking about the opposite position helps us to get in touch with what we're really trying to say. If you're writing a poem about a loved one, try writing a poem about an enemy instead, and see if it helps you to narrow down your ideas. 2. Look out for repetition, particularly moments where you're repeating a description or a specific detail of characterization. This is arguably more important in poetry than prose, where space is at a premium. Try not to do the same work twice when one image or description will do. However, this can also be a problem in fiction. Sometimes we can be too keen to put a particular detail about a character into a story because we think it's a good detail. It might well be, but make sure you're not overemphasizing the point. 3. Have you moved your reader? Good writing will have moved the reader to see a new perspective on an issue. All writing, be it poetry, prose, screenwriting, has a narrative. This doesn't necessarily have to be a plot, but it should show how an experience has developed. Writing which leaves your reader in exactly the same mental space as they were at the start will be lacking something. 4. Have you broken your own rules? We all know from experience that when a novel breaks its own rules, and a character does something they'd not been able to do before with no narrative justification, for example when characters demonstrate the ability to time travel and then suddenly stop using this for no apparent reason when it would have come in really handy a few books later, it can be incredibly frustrating. Find to surprise your reader. Try to avoid moments where you're undermining the principles you've established. 5. Is it still exciting? There will be points in your writing, particularly if you're writing a longer work like a novel, where you'll be so familiar with the piece that it will be frustrating. Try to keep an eye out for moments, be they paragraphs or lines, or even whole chapters, where you feel bored. If you're bored by it, the chances are high that your reader will be as well. These are the moments to focus on for surface or structural edits, to inject some more excitement into the narrative. So take a piece of writing that you've completed and try to redraft it with one or more of these tips in mind. Don't worry if the editing process takes much longer than the first draft did. Studying creative writing at Worcester will encourage you to develop patience and the tools you'll need to be proud of your accomplishments. And we will work with you to ensure that your writing is sharp and professional. A strong and exciting first draft is great, but over the course of your studies, we will work together to really develop your overall craft to help you become the best writer you can be. Thanks for listening to this session on editing and redrafting, which is the final episode in our 6-part series of creative writing exercises. Please do make sure to check out the other episodes on our YouTube channel for more ideas to inspire your writing. If you've already applied to study creative writing at the University of Worcester, or if you're interested in applying, please do feel free to get in contact with us using the following email addresses. We're always happy to help.